my gosh, this industry is such a great industry, and it's all about inspiration, and it's about the love of flowers. And if you're here today and you don't love flowers, then you just need to leave right now, because how could you not love the flowers? Do you love the flowers? How about a big round of applause for Japanese Flowers and Plants Export Association? Brought all of these in for us, and they just are fabulous. So I have to thank Kanishi and also Shigi from Japan that gave us these beautiful products that we're able to work with today, along with some other great inspirations for you. So I want to talk about inspiration itself. What inspires you? We go in every single day and make the same arrangements. It's that number off the website, or it's in the book that you have to copy, and we do it all the time, don't we? So sometimes we kind of get into that little bit of a rut, and we want to make it. So today is about designing for you. I want you to walk away being inspired, because the things, I don't get to do this very often, to be able to say when I'm at home working and thinking, I need to make this, or I want to make this, I want to do this, because when I'm on the road, it's like, this is what I got to make. But here I was able to think about it and think about the inspirations that I wanted to bring forward. And I have this file of pictures and inspirations that I use, that I rip them out of a book, and I program them, or I print them off on my printer and throw them in this file. And I was able to do that this time. So I'm bringing you my inspirations that I think of, things that are just really kind of fun, along with these beautiful flowers that we have from Japan, but also just the things that inspire you. So what inspires us, to me, I think a lot of it is, maybe it's what we've learned. It's the teachers that have taught us the things that we've seen. Maybe it's other designers that you have seen, that you follow on social media, that does all of these different applications. Maybe it's art. Does art inspire you sometimes to think of ways to do things? Maybe it is architecture that inspires you. And we were talking yesterday about Savage Botanicals. How many of you remember Savage Botanicals? So the dress inspiration, and these were couture dresses made out of flowers that we did, oh my gosh, how many years ago was this? 2013, I think, is when we did that presentation for AIFD Symposium. And they were at Arizona State also. But these dresses came from, I walked into Barnes & Noble, and I like to go to the book section, and I pulled out a book called Savage Beauty. And it was Alexander McQueen's fashion dresses that he created. And every page I turned, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do this with flowers. And the next page, I have to do this with flowers. And I think, Gail, you remember how excited I was, because I'm like bursting at the seams. It's like, I've got a great idea that we can do these dresses with all this floral products that we use every single day. And then I expanded it to some great Arizona women that created these dresses with me. And it's just about that little spark that just gets you so excited. And sometimes it's just as simple as you pick up a curly willow branch and you're just like, oh my gosh, look at that line movement. Now, is it just me? Do you guys get excited about stuff like that? It's like, oh, I got to use this. My husband just shakes his head. It's like, really, again? It's like, yes, get the saw. We're going to cut down this branch off of this tree. It's like, oh, here we go. But it's about that. That's what makes us so fun. And that's what inspires us throughout this whole thing. But I think the number one inspiration that we have is nature and following nature. And the biophilic movement that we're seeing, everybody's buying plants now. Everybody wants plants. So we're seeing that our consumers are loving that inspiration. And then now they're buying the flowers because of the pandemic, which is great because it makes people happy. Flowers help us be healthy and happy, and that's what we need in our lives every single day. So we should be the happiest people there are, right? Are we? Say yes. Please say yes. Yes, we are. So it's looking at all these different things that nature can do for us that applies to what we do. We deliver nature, don't we? We deliver that biophilic feeling every single day. So get on that band and promote what we do. It makes people happy and it makes us healthy just by having the flowers that we have. So make sure that you do that. You promise? Yes, thank you. All right, so we're going to start. I want to start with the first collection, since I have several for you. This one is nature inspired. All right, so Gail, if you want to bring me out the first one. Plants. So we talked about the plant movement and how plants are so positive and that people want to buy them right now. I want to think how we can change this. The other idea of being inspired today is I want you to pull out every aspect that you have of creativity in your brain and apply it to what we do, because we are artists and everything we do pertains to that art field that we have, and it's that love and that passion that we have. So being an artist and being creative, that's what makes us stand out. You know, we're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and if you like that, that's great. But if you want to stand out and you want your consumers to say, did you walk into that flower shop and did you see this? Because your creative artistry is what's bringing our consumers in, and you have to stand out and you have to be different than everybody else. So a Phalaenopsis plant. So a Phalaenopsis, you know, one thing that really bothers me about a Phalaenopsis plant are the sticks with the little hair clips, right? So you've got to come up with another way to do that. If everybody sells them, that's great. And if you like them, that's great. Gail likes to wear them in her hair, which is great. But I want to do something different. So let me show you what we've done. And I've kind of taken this idea from Renee Tucci, who is another great floral designer in our industry. And she does hers with bind wire. And I'm just going to come out and just show you a little bit. But the idea here is to take the techniques and make them your own. Okay? So follow that. So we have 8 taped and wired, just florist wire with bind wire. So on one side I have 5, one side I have 3, and I'm just weaving up through this. Okay, so you can see with the yarn that I've done it with yarn instead of just floral tape. So the easiest way to do this is to use your drill. Has everybody done that? Have you covered your wire with wire or the taped wire or with anything else with the drill? Let me show you. Gail, would you like to pass that out to them so they can kind of take a look at that closer? I don't have my drill plugged in, but you take a wire, put a piece of U-glue on the end of it, put your yarn on it, or you could do bullion, whatever you want to do, put it in your drill, and then turn it on nice and slow. And it's just going to take 2 seconds, and it's covered. Okay, so use power tools, which is great. But it's the same with this. It's just like that bind wire one, is to divide it up into 5, and then just weave the one side, which is this, and then taper it off to the very end, and then weave the other side so that it comes up and attaches. And what I've done is used a little bit of bind wire to attach. That's my support. So this wire in this leaf can make my Phalaenopsis move any direction that we want them to. So make that support structure. Is that something you think you can use? You got to play with this because this is really fun. So I'll pass this out too if you want to tuck that out. But change your plants up. Do something different to your plants. Just don't make it the same. And if you think, well, the cost involved in that is not going to work, your consumers, if they like it, they're going to buy it. We have this tendency to kind of sell to our income level. There's a lot of people that are above my income level. So make sure that you're selling your art and your craft. And the trends that we're seeing is all handcrafted, handmade, hand-created, and that's what we want to sell. Can you do that? All right, let's go on to the next. Thank you, my dear. All of these are going to be in the back that you can take a closer look at. Thank you, Gail.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, nature again. You guys are really quiet. Oh, that's better. All right. So nature again. So we've got a beautiful container. This is the Galveston container from Accent Decor that I've used. But again, when we think about nature, we think about branches. We think about, here's this lush look of these just mossy branches that we have tied in. We have this fantail pussy willow tucked into it. And it's all about green. It's all about shades of green and textures of green. And the balance that we have with those colors is what's really fun that we see. And when we're using monochromatic color tones like all shades of greens, it comes down to the fact that the texture is what makes it stand out. So we have the texture in the umbrella palm, next to the texture that we have in the Oregonia, next to the texture that we have with the foxtail fern, and et cetera, et cetera. We've got some beautiful vines from Japan that is a Japonica variety, which is just, the trends that we're seeing also is tender vines are huge, that we're seeing that soft flowiness that we have. How many have heard the term Scandi chic? Anybody heard that term? So Scandi chic is softness. It's from Scandinavia. We think of fluffy and cotton, and we'll get into some of those. But Scandi chic also is about flowing and softness that we want. And so we're taking this vertical line movements that we created in this. It's not necessarily a parallel design because parallel is exact when it comes to placements and stems. But we're looking at the structure that we created. So it's a nice rectangular design. But then we've softened it with this secondary line movement created with this japonica that's been added to this. We have a few poppy pods that just give us a little bit of interest down inside. And then our basing techniques. Basing is anything that you do on top of your foam to cover it up, basically. So you could do pavéing, you could do groupings, you can do clustering, anything on that order. Well, we've got these beautiful green trick that's tucked right into that. So if you take a look at this, what's the first kind of descriptive word that you think of? It's kind of soft, isn't it? Does it feel soft to you? It feels kind of fluffy. So when we're looking at fluffy things, we want to make sure that if we put a fluffy next to a fluffy next to a fluffy, what do we have? It's just fluffy. So looking at the difference in the textures, we have to make sure that the textures are different, applying them next to one another so that we get this influence. So this is my interpretation of the forest. I have in the back, this is, of course, a big trend that we're seeing too is sustainability, recycling, repurposing, reusing. This is a plastic disc that was just a plastic plate that I had, that I've done what's called pour painting. Is anybody familiar with pour painting? It's fun, isn't it? I love to do pour painting. Basically, you take acrylic paints, you add a product that's called Floral to it that makes it run faster, and then it doesn't disintegrate or diminish the color palette of it at all. But then you add just whatever other colors you want to, mix it a little bit, pour it on, and just let it run. It's kind of messy, but that's the fun part of it, is just letting it go. So you can do some really interesting things with pour painting that you can add just a little bit of detail and then repurpose something that you already have. That's a piece of plastic that maybe would have ended up in our recycle bins. So thinking about some of the different things that you can do with the textures that are applied to this, the balance that's applied to this, the color impacts. Again, repetition is vital when you're thinking about this because the rusty color from our container at the bottom is kind of repurposed and reused again, so that's repeating that same color palette. And repetition in design is really important just to make sure that it is not an accident, that it's intentional. So if you do one thing and there's just the one thing that's in there and not repeated again, it's not really balanced correctly when it comes to repetition. So you want to make sure that that repetition is balanced and that you do it over and over again, repeating form, color, shape, pattern, texture, size. All of this is repeated again and again. Do you like this one? Does it inspire you to go take a walk in the forest? It does, doesn't it? With all the rain that we've had in Arizona, I think we have a forest now. But it's that green that inspires us, and we don't always get that with Arizona. Oh, thank you, Brian. All right. Again, when we're looking at the forest in general, it's just that layers and layers and layers of design of products that are in that. And here we have a volumetric design. A volumetric basically is a rectangular design that has layers and layers of products. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the products that are in here, of course, with the bells of Ireland and the beautiful long birch that we've got created into this. But we also have our umbrella fern, and again, I love this japonica, which is from the Japanese Flowers and Plants Export Association, which is just amazing. Along with, and I have to just pull this out, this Tweedia, which again is another Japanese product, which we don't often use Tweedia in design, but look how beautiful. And it's one of those that you have to touch it because it's so soft. Tally, can you? Here, just pass it through the audience. I want everybody just to touch it, just because we tactile people. When you go shopping for clothes, what do? You have to touch it, right? It's the color that draws us in. It's that color that we see that, oh, I like this, and then we have to touch it. And this is what it's about. It's that tactile appeal that we have when it comes to natural products. And just touching it, it's just amazing to see. It kind of has that lamb ears effect because it's that touch surface, but it's beautiful, isn't it? And you didn't have that inspiration or that reaction until you did touch it. So that's what's amazing about Tweedia and all that beautiful the looks. So we have it in white and we have it in blue from Japan, which is just amazing. So let me come back a little bit to this particular design. And with this design, what we have, the container itself is an accent decor container. This one is called, oh, I have to look at the name of it because I forget them all. I'll come back to it because I forget what it is right off the top of my head. But the container, I kind of disguised it just a little bit just because what we've done is brought the arrangement outside of the container itself. So we have that ceramic container, and if you look down inside, we have layers of ribbons. There's a woolen ribbon that's tucked in. There's another linen ribbon that's tucked in. There's also that bark ribbon, and then a little bit of jute that gives us the layering, but that's also what's holding on my branches. So my branches that come out along the outside edge and along with the jute at the bottom are holding that dimension. So it creates that dimension. So if we have older containers, we have repurposed containers that maybe they've been around, give them a highlight just by adding product to the outside. This is a great design technique for fall, is bringing the branches to the outside. And, and we all have that stick bucket, right? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, and everybody else. It's that I'm going to use that someday bucket, right? I'm going to use that. So it's that bucket that you have to go to say, let's repurpose this. The product availability, and Brad was talking a little bit about that a little bit earlier, that product availability is going to become an issue because we can't always get what we want, so we have to use what we have. This is where the creativeness comes in, and how can I be creative with what I have? What can I use to have that inspiration to do some fun designs and techniques that we do throughout the design process? So looking at this is the Elliott vase, now that I realize the name of it, that is a large ceramic, and it's an accent decor that's filled with foam, and then all of our design comes up through that. But it's one of those, it's almost like a waterfall design. You want to get into that volumetric, and you just want to tear it apart to see what's down inside that. That's the interest that we want to create. That's what Mother Nature does. When you're walking through the forest, or when you're walking, anywhere where there's a lot of lush materials, maybe it's the jungle, and you see that there's layers and layers and layers of different products that are growing every which way and do whatever they want to. So that inspiration can come to you and be really fun. So thinking about how you can take the idea of a volumetric design and using Mother Nature as an influence. I love branches. I like to put branches in just about anything that I do. So using that concept and that influence of doing just green for Mother Nature. All right. This is a little heavy.
Okay, I got you, thank you. Yep.
All right. Okay, let's go on to our next one. Oh, I'm sorry, Gail.
It's okay.
All right, let me make one for you here. And I want you to, let me give you one to walk around with. Thank you, dear. You can take that one. All right. So Gail's going to come around. Gail is my Vanna White today. All right, Vanna. And she's going to show you a technique. It's basically taking Starry leaves and adding a zipper to it. All right. So you can buy any zipper that you want, and you just slit. And it has to be a sturdy leaf to be able to do this, just because sometimes the tea leaves are not quite strong enough. So Strelitzia leaves, the Birds of Paradise leaves, are probably the best one to do it with. And you just use Oasis adhesive. So you cut a strip out, add the zipper to that, and it depends upon whether you want it to zip up or not, you can. So depending upon how you want to do that, but cut out a piece and then add your zipper to it, which I just think is really kind of fun. And it's interesting, and people are going to look at that and like, what? What's in that? So think about how you can take things that aren't usual and make them unusual. So we're going to start. I've got some Birds of Paradise. So I see there's going to be a run on zippers at Joann's Fabric, isn't there? Yep. It's on Amazon. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to use Birds of Paradise. Does everybody know how to open a bird? Is there somebody that doesn't? How do you do it? Okay, first of all, you want to soak it in a little bit of water, and usually warm water. I'm just going to get him wet. Use both of your thumbs, and we should know how to do this. And there are some people that are masters at opening these up. They can get every little bracket, but thumbs down on both sides and pry it out because they're not going to open on their own. Okay? And then you want to take off the guards petals that are along the sides. They're white. Just pull those off, and then you've got a beautiful bird. And you can keep going. I mean, there's color down all the way through the center of that, but it's fun to do. And I love Birds of Paradise just because I think they're an amazing product. All right, so I have to highlight my zippers. And I'm going to do a formalinear design style. Formalinear is basically a design that is with line and space. So this is where oftentimes I use premium products that are expensive. Birds of Paradise are more expensive. If you're going to do the technique with the zipper, that's more expensive. So it's bringing that color palette into it, but if it's a premium product, you want to showcase it. You want to make sure that you're not going to hide it. It should stand right out all the way through. So I'm just going to add my birds. And then I have a hydrangea that I want to put in there. And how many have problems with hydrangea and foam? It's a struggle sometimes, isn't it? All right, so the technique is, I have to go old school on this, is alum. Everybody know what alum is? If you don't, go to the grocery store. It's in the spice aisle. It's for dill pickles. It makes pickles crisp when you're pickling them. But you take your hydrangea and you cut it the length that you want. And I always have this on my design counter, because every hydrangea I cut gets dipped in alum, and it makes it nice and crisp. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use an apple core, and I'm going down in the middle of my foam and take the foam out. So I have a hole. Okay? So now, when I put this in, the debris from the floral foam is not going to block my stem whatsoever. It goes right down into the water base, right down on the very top. I'm going to make it just a little bit shorter. And it's in there. So that's going to make it stand out. Now I have to use the other flowers to hold it in, because that hole, it's not in there tight. There's no tension there. So I have to do that. And we can do that very easily. All right, let me get the rest of these. So I have some umbrella fern. We're going to collar all the way around. And you could do this with salal. You could do it with leatherleaf if you wanted to. It doesn't have to necessarily be umbrella fern. But that collaring, what that does now, is I pretty much have covered up most of my foam, because you can't see that now, with just minimal insertions. And that's what we see with formalinear design, is minimal insertions. You don't need a lot of insertions, and it's a lot easier to create. So I'm going to add a few carnations here, and I'm just going to come around the base. I think my line movement is pretty well established. And I've got some beautiful orange carnations. And if you've ever been in my class, what's my rule? If I put it on one side, you have to put it on the other side. Why? Renee, why? Balance. You do 4 balances in one shot. There's physical balance, visual balance, color balance, and textural balance just by doing that simple movement in your design. You're creating depth. You're doing all these things. That is just what you should be doing automatically in a design. You shouldn't have to stop and think about what I want to do. So I've added orange to both sides. The blue pulls down the blue in the Birds of Paradise. And now I've got, oh my gosh, some beautiful Lizianthus. This is called the chocolate variety of Lizianthus. That is amber double chocolate. That we have to tie this in. And it pulls out the color of the container right into that design. And I'm just going to use them low into this just to highlight my focal area and just emphasize that. Again, pull it to the opposite side. few on this side. Also pulls out the color of my zipper in my leaves. But pulling that in, I'm going to add just a little bit more texture, just because I think I need it a little bit. And standing back and looking at your design is probably the most important thing that you can do. Just be careful. I've fallen in many of flower boxes just by walking backwards. But you have to stand back and look at the overall appearance and how it affects you. And if you stand there and your head kind of goes like this, you're adjusting for balance. So your head should be straight. It shouldn't have to adjust. So make sure that what you're looking at, that it feels comfortable. The design has to feel comfortable for you. And if it's not comfortable, then you have to go back to, okay, what principle have I done wrong? And that's basically what it is. So if it's, and it also comes down to that if you put something in the wrong place and you know it's in the wrong place, just don't take it out, compensate it some other way. Put something else in that's going to take that weight away from that if you wanted to, whatever that is, but just use that tension and use that balance to make it look good and to feel good all the way through. My blue was a little dominant, so we want to just kind of break that up just a little bit. And again, there's so many different design styles that are available to us that have been around for hundreds of years. They're never going to change. These are the design styles. They may be tweaked a bit. And now we're seeing that beautiful free-form English garden design style, which is just about, this is what we see on social media all the time. This is what people are doing. And you have to do it correctly. You just can't put one big protea in the center of it and expect it to look good. So make sure that you're following the principles of design and that you're following that balance movement and that you're looking at the textures and the elements of design and making sure that it's all correct when you are into your designing element. But also, if you don't know, then ask. Just ask somebody, or go to a great book. A book out there that's AIFD.org is their Guidebook to Floral Design that has all of these different techniques. It has all of these different principles and elements and how to explain them. Or even look on YouTube. You'll see lots of videos that have all of these different things that are added to that. But coming back, here I'm on a trend here. Coming back to our zippers. Did you like it? Yeah, so it creates interest. I have to just turn this so you can see it. It creates interest. It's a little bit of an accent in the design that draws your attention to just like, oh, what is that? And that's what we want our customers to say. What did you do? How did you do this? Other than just saying, oh, I just want that. I'll just take that. So make them understand how important it is to understand the art part of our designing. Thank you, sir. All right, that's nature. All right. Let's go to a little bit of Arizona here. So I want to talk a little bit about industrial designing and how architecture and how building materials can be an inspiration. One of my favorite stores in the whole wide world is Home Depot. If you haven't figured that out, I love Home Depot just because I can wander up and down the aisles and just say, what is going to inspire me to create? What can I use to create? But I love this idea of using what we have in Arizona along with kind of tying it into our industrial field that we have. So I have this century plant. This is the blue Americana agave that I've just taken two, and you have to be really careful because they're pretty spiny, but attach it to the outside of the vase. Again, if you cut those, how long are they going to last? Years, right? A long time. It's going to take a long time for that to dry out. If you seal up the end, it's going to last a lot longer. If you paint them any color, it's going to last even longer because it seals everything up. So you can have some interest with using some plant materials to our advantage that don't have to necessarily be in water. What I've done is I've just attached them to the outside. Around the very base of the vase, I've just added strapping tape. So the rules of glue are you glue to something porous. So my glass cylinder is not porous, right? So if I add tape to it, it could be duct tape, it could be anything that's waterproof tape attached to the vase then I can glue anything to that. So I've just glued with U-glue the agaves right to the outside edge, and just used some of the flat wire just to cover that up to kind of give me that industrial feel through there. And then along the sides, I've added a little bit of wire. So the wire comes here just to kind of hold them in place. There is a little grommet that is tucked in there, so I have something that's going to hold it in place so it's not going to rip. Because once your material is out of water, it will dehydrate a little bit. So I don't want that to become smaller. So I want to be able to have something that's going to hold that in place. Down in the very center, this is just a hand tie tucked in. I have some of this same wire that I just formed into a grid. So it's very industrial, it's very mechanical that I've tucked in, but it's also, because of the effect that I have it on the outside, it becomes a decorative. So I'm able then to see that, along with our beautiful equisetum that's coming out of the top. And this is another one of my favorite flowers. Our Starry Pods, have you seen these? No, you guys haven't seen these? Oh my gosh. We have to pass these around. Would you pass that for me? Starry Pods are the bloom, or that's like the pod off of the blooming clematis. So it's what's left over at the very end. And right now for Halloween, this is really a kind of a fun flower to have, but it just gives us that texture. That's interesting. It's all about every single part of nature can inspire us, whether it's from the beginning of growth or to the very end of growth. You know, when we were looking at that Phalaenopsis plant, when you walk into a greenhouse, how do you feel? Refreshed. That's a really good word, isn't it? When you think about it, you think about the warmth that's in there, the sunlight that's coming in, and what's the smell? Is it dirt? It's dirt, isn't it? It's soil. I don't want to call it dirt, but it's something, it's soil. But it's that smell. Do you know you can buy a candle on Etsy that's called Greenhouse, and it smells like dirt? But it's just that environment that you put yourself in that kind of can inspire you to do different things. And thinking about the environment that we live in here in Arizona, very unique items that we have that you can create some very fun and interesting things. All green again, but then just interesting textures, interesting detail. Do you like it? A little spiky.
I saw that.
Just grab it at the bottom.
Gotcha.
I got it? Okay. Thank you, Vicki. All right. So again, a little bit industrial. Thank you, Renee. So industrial again. So thinking about, this is an accent decor planter that I've sprayed the silver color and then added. There's a great glue out there. I don't know if everybody's familiar with E6000. And if you don't have this in your shop, you need to get this in your shop, because you can glue everything together with this. And it's clear. It does have to set for 24 to 48 hours for it to be completely hard. But the ability then to add anything together, whether it's glass, ceramic, metals, anything on that order, you can do that. So here I've taken the planter, and I've just taken some fencing and just cut it and added to it, and then I added washers and bolts just to kind of create that industrial type theme to this, because I wanted to bring that through so that you can see that we can add many things to. That glue is amazing. That creativity from that alone, can you put containers together and add all different types of things to this. But I wanted to also just bring that line movement up. So we've got this beautiful equisetum coming up, and you're going to have to look a little bit closer, because at the very top we've got wire going through the equisetum. That's what holds it all in place. So it's an 18-gauge wire, but then there's grommets that are strung on that 18-gauge wire to create interest. If you look at our foliage leaves, let me pull one out here that you can see a little bit closer. To come around to the front here, this one's. Attached. Hang on just a second. So you can see that there's grommets in the leaf. So you just take the grommet and you just kind of work it and cut the circle out with the grommet. And I just glued the grommet on. I don't have the back on the grommet. Does everybody know what a grommet is? So you put it through leather and that type of thing. So now it creates a center for me. So I'm able then to just kind of create interest. So doing something like that very simply creates interest in the leaf itself. Let me tuck you back in. Sorry, I take you apart. But coming up and then using, oh my gosh, these beautiful Gloriosa lilies that just add this expanse that we have from Japan that are just amazing. And then kind of taking, I kind of call this a mainland exotic because we have our beautiful carnations, and then we add the exotic part, which is the anthurium. We have the beautiful lilies that are added to this. We also have the beautiful, butter yellow color of the Lizianthus that's tucked down inside just to bring that color palette from our beautiful Gloriosa that's at the top, because there's these two color tones that we wanted to pull down inside of that. And again, that's repeating that color. So pulling that down through and adding the anthurium again gives us that tropical feel, but it's pulling that all together. There's a lot of line and space in this, and there's a lot of drama that's created because there's also wire with grommets that are just strung through that to pull that whole idea up through the flower design itself. That creativity can be done in many different ways when you're thinking about using a certain container. It's like, how can I change that up? And it's just like, what do you got? What can you add to it that's going to be different? What are you going to add to it that's going to make your customer say, where did you come up with that idea? And that's what we want. We want to be different. We don't want the same thing every single day in our shops. And you have to charge for that creativity, right? Because not everybody can do this. Well, of course not. You all can now. But thinking about it, we are an art form, and we don't give it away. Our creativity costs money. And again, we have that tendency to sell to our income level, but making sure that you charge for what you do, because if customers love it, what are they going to do? They're going to buy it. They're going to love that. So thinking about how you can create that line movement with the equisetum coming up and just giving us that amazing line movement that we have, and then pulling it all down. The shorter the stem of the flower, the longer it's going to last. Does that make sense? So the carnations, the Lizianthus is the very base, are the ones that are going to last the longest. They're going to just take water on and on and on. And so we're going to have that detail tucked right down into that very center that gives us that texture and that color, because we have a fluffy next to a sleek, next to a Gloriosa lily, which we can tell the difference. We can tell that difference between them, and that's what's really kind of fun. Do you like this color palette? And that's, again, it's Mother Nature that's doing it. The color palette comes from our beautiful Gloriosa that is from Japan that we just absolutely love, and it comes out and just gives us a happy day. So we just love that. All right, industrial. That's your fingers you can hold. Got it. All right. So now we need kind of a whimsy. I think we need a little bit of laughter in our lives, don't you think? Does everybody like to laugh? So I wanted to do a segment that is, I don't want to call them just household products, but I wanted to do something that's just kind of interesting and fun. It's what we have, because it may come down to that. If we can't get a certain container for a certain design, maybe you have to create your own. So here I've just taken some hardcover books, and I've glued them all together. And if you look into the very center one, I took out all of this, the paper, and put water tubes in. So they're just hot glued right to both sides. They're covered with yarn, so I have something to glue to, and they're stuck right into the very center of these books. All right. Oh, jeez. You're so cute. So let's just add to this a little bit. I have some beautiful limonium. And of course, this is a temporary design because I am using water tubes. It's not going to last long because most of the products are going to suck that water up really quickly. So it would be a temporary, maybe it's for a luncheon, maybe it's for the library opening, maybe it's whatever that you wanted to do. But I have some beautiful dahlias. That we're going to tuck in. Pray. Yeah, dahlias are one of those products that, you know, it's difficult to make them long lasting. So I don't have any tips. Does anybody have any tips for dahlias? Does alum use? I didn't hear what you. Really? I have not tried alum on dahlias. Does it work? All right. All right. Man, I know you can kind of do it with Gerber daisies too, but I've never done it with a dahlia. So thank you for that tip. So anything that's going to help our industry and make our flowers last longer, I'm all for it. So, all right, so we're going to add to each of these. This is the peach. It's beautiful peach Lizianthus from the Japanese Flowers and Plants Export Association. Oh, beautiful. Tuck those right in. You know, you just want to kiss it, you know, because it's so, oh my gosh. You just want to stick your face in them. It's like, oh, they're so beautiful. Now, don't do it to the Gloriosa. You get lily pollen on you. But, oh, those Lizianthus are just amazing. And it's that double ruffled look that just gives us, ugh. All right, so I'm adding a little bit of allium, and I'm about at my capacity in my water tubes, so I don't want to add a whole lot more. You need to be a little shorter. And then we're going to add a little bit of this japonica again, because I just love this. Again, just that drapiness that we see. I'm going to shorten you up just a bit. And tuck you in. And it just adds that drapiness, just makes it softer. Everything is really kind of structured before, but just making it soft really makes a difference in that creative line movement that you're creating with it. Oh, just look at that's fabulous. How many of you are designers that you picture it in your mind and then you can create it exactly what you saw? Can anybody do that? I can't do that. Oh, that's well, and I can draw them out too, but once I get into a piece of product, it's like, I have to do something else with this because the line movements kind of draw me to do something different. So I have a concept, always have a concept, but it changes quite a bit sometimes. Sometimes it just doesn't work. So you got to go to something else, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I want you to stand up right there. All right, a little drape on the other side. But do you have books that you could use? Can you imagine for like a child's birthday or something that you could use child's books? They almost have to be like a hardcover book to be able to withstand the width and the strength of it. Ugh. All right, that's our novelty, number one. And our beautiful Lizianthus from Japan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Novelty number two. All right. I've been dying to do this design for so long. So let me talk about mechanics because that's what you're here for. So how the heck did she do that? Right? So invest in a diamond bit for your drill. And you can drill through ceramic, glass, pottery of any kind. So if you use that, what I've done is I've drilled through the containers. And when you're drilling, you just add a little bit of water to it because it gets pretty hot. So, but just be patient when you're drilling through that. Don't be like, You want to be, okay. So drill through this. And then I use the E6000 to glue them together and attach them then to, these are aluminum rods that you can buy at a hardware store that I've drilled a hole into the base, put the aluminum rod into that, and pulled it up over to bend it to the curve that you want, and slid those on. What I did first, though, was like on the very base, you'll have to look at this a little bit closer. At the very base, I have a little bit of a washer. Or you can use a nut or something that's going to hold that in place, glue it with E6000, let that dry, and then add anything else to this. And then my friend Gail was really patient. See, I come up with the ideas, and I like to, I can do it. If I can do it in 10 minutes, I'm done. But if the things that take longer than 10 minutes, I make Gail do. So just because she likes to do that. But the detail then is just taking my rye fern, spring rye, and wrapping it onto the wires, and that gives me something to glue to. And then I could glue all the limonium and all the little button palms and the gomphrena, and you could do sweetheart roses, whatever you wanted to do, added to this. But everything is attached. So it's not going to come off. Okay, so that glue will stick anything to it, but you just have to be patient with it to make it happen. So can you imagine the different things that you can do? Yeah, it's endless, isn't it? So you have to make sure you take all the concepts and apply them to yourself and come up with a great, you had a question? This is just I don't know. It was in my garage. That's all I can tell you. I think it's a shelf, a white shelf from something. I don't know. Anyway, my garage is like a flower shop. So just having all of these different things, just adding to that, you can create some great ideas. This one has a tendency to want to move a little bit for me. But it's fun, and it's whimsy, and it's lighthearted, and it makes you laugh. And it's even if it's just taking your cups and saucers and just gluing them together into a stack, and then having a design out of the top of that. I mean, it's just simple things that you can do that are going to make people say, oh my gosh, how fun is that? And that's what it's about. Everybody's going to make these tomorrow, right? Yeah, I love it. You'll have to look at it up a little closer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, whimsy again. So I wanted to do something a little bit light and airy, and again, I have beautiful gloriosas. But then we have, this is from Floral Supply Syndicate, which is another, they provided all the hard goods for us, because they carry all the accent decor products too. But it's a butterfly. I mean, how fun is this little glittered butterfly? The trend that we're seeing right now, especially coming up for holidays and anything that you see, is a little bit of sparkle. Can you tell? It's a little bit of sparkle in everything that we're doing. And Christmas especially, it's that diamond dust that we're seeing. It's that little bit of a sparkle. It's everywhere. Glitter is everywhere. Not that we don't already have enough glitter at the holiday time. It's going to get even more because there's a lot of glitter. These butterflies just have the long wire on them. And all I did is take them off and put them on a clothespin. So glued them right to the clothespin. So now what I can do is I can control my gloriosas and make them do what I want them to do just by using a clothespin and a beautiful little butterfly just to give us that little technique. But it's something whimsy and it's something fun and it's light and airy and people are going to, when they look at it, they're going to smile. And that's what we need right now is just that laughter and that smile that makes our life good. Branches, these are just, it's bamboo grass that I sprayed white just to give us this is the fairy vase from Accent Decor because it all ties into kind of that whimsy kind of feel that we have. Again, collared by these beautiful peach Lizianthus from Japan. A little focal area is created with the hypericum just tucked down into the very center. But again, it's repeating the color palette from Gloriosas. Look at what nature does and repeat what she does. It's just amazing when it comes to color and texture and all of the different elements that she can come up with. Copy that same kind of thing. It gives you that same look. All right. It's fun. If you like butterflies and you like feathers, that's right up your alley. And a little bit of glitz. All right. Thank you, Gail. All right, so we're going to go to kind of a landscape influence. Can you tell that this is the Arizona desert? Does it look like the desert? Okay, good. All right. That's what we want. All right, let me see. So this is just done on a cylinder vase. It's just a clear glass cylinder. And repurpose, reuse, recycle. Cardboard. So I've just taken cardboard and I've scored it with my knife. And then if you have like a wire brush, just kind of beat it a little bit, but just play with it. Just kind of work it off so that you can kind of get that corrugation all the way through. Around the base of the cylinder, I just have duct tape. Don't use cheetah duct tape, but use silver, the cheaper stuff. But duct tape will hold right to that vase, and then you glue your cardboard right onto that. And then I just added a little bit of plaster of Paris. And the plaster of Paris, my cardboard didn't go all the way down, but I added a little bit at the base and a little bit at the top, and just kind of brushed it onto that just to give me that texture. To me, it kind of felt maybe these are the canyons of the Grand Canyon, or it's just that textures of soil that we see around Arizona that gives us that influence. Across the very top, I have, this is a grape root that you could use manzanita, you could do whatever you wanted to. I don't know how apropos grape root is to the desert, but there are grapes that grow here, so I guess maybe so. we see. And then we have just our interesting, this is basically a 1-1-1-1. So it's one product, it's mono botanical in groupings. Instead of saying I've got one Banksy on this side and this side, I don't have that. It's intentional that I don't have that, just because I wanted to create that interest. So I've got one beautiful little Banksy in my focal area that's then accented by just a prickly pear pad. This is the thornless ones. Don't get the ones with the thorns on them. That's not fun. But I also wanted to bring in just some of the cotton. So this is dried cotton from Floral Supply Syndicate that I just glued into a chain. How many recognize what this is? Is it Decor pods? So you know I think they call them, what, angel trumpets? It's a weed. It's a weed that grows. Gypsum? I don't know, but it's a datura pod is what it's called. The botanical name is datura. But it actually, you can't ingest these because I think it's like a hallucinogenic. So don't do that. But what I wanted was just something that, of course, this is gathered. So to sell it, it may not be. But I wanted just to do it for myself, just to pierce this and sew them together. And because they're very spiny, but it's about the textures that we see. And so if you're walking through, we talked about walking through the forest. If you walk through the desert, what are the things that you see? And I've been watching these beautiful angel trumpet plants grow like crazy because it's raining like crazy in Tucson. And they're getting bigger and bigger. And then I noticed, oh my gosh. And you can buy these commercially, actually. I've seen them on the market in the fall. But it's just amazing that texture that you can do. So we've got the beautiful vines. Again, that japonica from Japan is just beautiful, just to kind of relax that through. But do you like my inspiration for Arizona? It's fun, isn't it? So think about the techniques and the things that you can do. All right, we have another one. So I wanted to go to the desert. Now we're going to go to the water and do a horizontal. I have a couple horizontals coming out. So looking at this, this is a woodlot container that's from Accent Decor that I glued to a tray, and they'll duct tape again, duct tape on the tray, glue on the wood box, and stick them together, and they're going to hold, because you cannot get that off unless you really pry it. So using this, we have some beautiful, this is meadow grass that has that heavier wire through it. It's like what I used on that agave, so it's a heavier wire than an 18-gauge wire. So again, a hardware store, because I wanted to be able to control this immensely. Ikuko helped me with this design and just did a beautiful interpretation for this. But the grasses then have the wire in the center, so then she was able to manipulate it the way that she wanted to manipulate it, coming out of the foam in the very base. Hydrangeas were done yesterday afternoon in foam, so you see how well that they held up. Beautiful Veronica, but this line movement goes horizontal, and then again with the japonica vine that comes all the way through, a little bit of brunia tucked into that too, just to give us that color palette. Does it feel kind of like the waves of the ocean? So it gives us that flow all the way through and just that relaxed look that we see. A little bit of the, I just lost the name. Eryngium, thank you, Eryngium. Tucked in there, because that thistle, that texture has that tendency to kind of feel like the bottom of the ocean too. But I just love that color palette and just that look that it just gives us that movement. So, kind of makes us want to be to the ocean, doesn't it? You could put seashells and all kinds of things in that too. Thank you. Are you finding something you want to take home? Does everybody buy raffle tickets? Okay, because it's all being raffled off. Thank you, my dear. Yeah, I do. Thank you. All right. Another horizontal that I wanted to show, because I think that nature, the movement in nature is really kind of fun. Now, the mechanics on this is kabari. Does everybody know what kabari is? Kabari is where you're using branches to wedge. Is that right, Ikuko? Is that a good definition? Wedge it in to prop it so that it holds in there. So it is a ikebana technique, correct? Yeah. So we've taken a branch that I've wedged in, and I kind of cheated a little bit because I've got my branches going this way, and I've got my other branch coming this way with the branches coming down. And how many know what a brad nailer is? So that's another tool. If you don't have that in your repertoire, you need to get that, because a brad nailer puts a little like pin-like staple right through everything. So I brad nail it together so that it's not gonna come out of there and stay put. When you're working with Kabari, I have a tendency with Kabari, especially in glass, I oftentimes break the glass because you got to wedge it in so tight to hold the mechanic. And I know that's the wrong thing to do, but with the metal, what I want to do is just make sure it's going to stay there. And this is not going, oh, here we go. I don't want to pull it all the way out. You could go. But bringing it down and coming around. So using branches, because we're seeing alternatives to floral foam. Nothing wrong with floral foam. There's a place for floral foam in our industry. Absolutely is. And it is biodegradable. But we're seeing that trend that we want to kind of walk away from that a little bit, because it takes a long time for floral foam to biodegrade. But using alternatives and alternate mechanics is really a big trend that we're seeing. So using branches in a Kabari setting is really kind of fun to do. So we've got these beautiful dahlias, again, tucked into it's just full of water and a few of the rocks tucked in. And the beautiful yellow gloriosa lilies that gives us that spider effect all the way across, coming up with our beautiful japonica vine. But again, it's using the branch itself as the holding mechanism with a few rocks that are tucked down below. So then an alternative to some type of mechanic that you'd like to use in a container. Again, this is an accent decor container. It's a little heavy. And it's got also some of those beautiful chocolate, amber chocolate Lizianthus. Oh, beautiful. All right. So another trend that we're seeing are dried materials. Yes? Okay, so I'm going to talk to those designers that have been around for over 30 years. Did you like Pampas Grass the first time around? I'm seeing them shaking their heads back there. Pampas Grass, I love Pampas Grass. There's a place for it. We used it in the 70s. And you just need to go buy yourself the cheapest hairspray you can find and spray it so it controls it. Otherwise, it's everywhere. So make sure that Final Net works great with that. But we'll show you some Pampas Grass in a second. But this is African reed that I've used. And I'm going to turn it around here so you can see the mechanic on this. So it's African reed that's been glued to duct tape. Another trend that we're seeing is still around is animal prints. And it's still here. And it's going to be here next year. So we're going to see a lot of animal prints. And I've said this before, if you watch fashion, it's going to be in our homes. So whatever you're wearing today is going to be in our homes tomorrow, and that's going to affect our interior designing. So this is what we have. So if you follow what's coming with colors in fashion, we see that. But what I've done is just glued that right to that. It also has a couple wires up through that 18-gauge wire, so I'm able to then control that bend in this. And then it created a spine. So the spine is created with rustic wire. So that's that kind of twine-covered wire. And then just little snippets of metallic wire, which are about 4 inches long. And you just keep wrapping it and wrapping it and wrapping it. You'll have to come up a little closer to see. But there's all these little wires that come out that then we're able then to add the wheat to it. There's little bits and pieces of duct tape that are added to the outside edge because I wanted to bring that through to follow that pattern. We've got eryngium that's added, the dendrobium orchids that's added to that. These are permanent botanical hypericum berries that are added to this. This takes a long time to do. But the fun part of it is that we're doing this for ourselves. This is our inspiration today. It's not necessarily for the retailers, but I wanted you to see some of the techniques that we're seeing that are coming out of Europe and many other places that have these interesting designs, that have interesting techniques of things that we can do. It may not be saleable, and it probably isn't, because again, it's a temporary, but dendrobium orchids, if you seal them up and put them on a wire, they're gonna last quite a while for you. So when you're thinking about this and doing this for selling this for an event or something on that order, you have to think about the durability of the product that you're using and make sure that it's gonna be a product that holds up and that's gonna hold through. Again, some of that beautiful, this is bower vine that's coming up over the top of this. It holds up a little bit better out of water than some of the other soft, tender foliages that we see and the vines that we see. But again, just something interesting. Again, it's just on a wooden dowel that's done in concrete. and then just nail to the top with a little finishing nail so that it's tucked right in there. Again, a great container from Accent Decor. Do you like that? It's interesting. It's interesting. Can you do that?
What sealing?
I just use Oasis adhesive. That's the best thing to use on anything that you're using for corsage, anything where the flowers are out of water. Use the Oasis adhesive.
But you said you sealed them?
Well, that's how it seals. If you seal that, if you take the stem off, put the glue right on where you took that off of, and then that seals them up so they don't dehydrate on this thing. No, but I always use a finishing touch. So finishing touch, Crown and Glory, some type of anti-transpirant on that. That's going to keep that fresh, always. So make sure you just do that. Okay. Here, I'm going to have you hold this top part for a second. Uh-oh. That's all right. All right, let's talk about this base. So again, dried materials. So what I have is just a piece of wood. There's another, I think it's a 1.5-inch square piece of wood that's coming up, and in the very top, I drilled a hole through. I'm going to tip it because it's got water in. A loamy tray that's screwed in. So the loamy tray is what holds the other loamy tray to set inside of that. So I can use this as a rental if I wanted to. So, I mean, look at that color. So we have then the Pampas Grass, and this is Permanent Botanical Astilbe from Floral Supply Syndicate. That the color is just, that, again, mauve-y, dusty rose color is back into our palettes. So then we just created a design in another loamy tray that then sets right down inside of that. So again, this is Bower Vine, but, so for, I'll come around to the front so we can talk a little bit. I've got a monstera that offsets the weight of the product from the left-hand side. And again, that's just, it wasn't my intention to put in there, but I had to put it in there because I needed the weight. So visually, when you're looking at things, make sure that you look and see what balances that out. But the monstera on one side, again, the beautiful gloriosas that we have just extend out and just give us that star, that spider effect on the outside. Scabiosa pods. Hello, gosh, I'm losing that one today. The scabiosa pods. Then we come down to the carnations in the very center. So that color, beautiful color carnation. Look how that ties that texture in. And then, of course, again, with the beautiful Lizianthus, it's that amber chocolate from the Japanese Flowers and Plants Export Association, which are just magnificent when we look at that. But it's all about textures. Do you feel the textures? I mean, we don't even have to touch it to know how textural all of this is. And then the vines hanging down, that gives us that final look. But again, a great prop idea for weddings and events that you have coming up, just to create. Very simply done, but these are all just stapled on. The Permanent Botanical is stapled on, and then the rest of the drieds are just glued in. So you can use that with the glue gun all the way through, but then giving us just that textural movement. Do you like that? It's kind of fun, isn't it? It's fun, isn't it? So again, it's just those textures that we see with the dry materials. Instead of just sticking that Pampas grass in all of these different designs, come up with ideas that gives us an alternative to all of this so that it's really kind of interesting and it's really kind of fun. Oh, looks like I lost a bar. Oh well, all right, moving on. On our last piece for you. You got it. It's light.
Got it?
Yep. All right. I'm going to turn it around the back way first so you can see the mechanic on this. This is a new wreath from Floral Craft that Brad Beck was here earlier, who's now working for P. Garcia. There he is, Brad Beck. Thank you. Everybody wave at Brad. He used to be with Design Master. Now he's selling us really cool products from P. Garcia Group. But this is a wire-framed wreath that has chicken wire poultry netting wrapped through that so you can weave things through that. So it's a great product that comes in. It's the wreath in the heart, right? And the square. So there's lots of different things you can do. So you're able then to add to this. So I'm turning it around so you can see. Oh. So it's attached to a branch, and that's just any kind of a tree branch you can get. You can buy it commercially, you go out forage, whatever you want to do. The branch is then put in plaster of Paris so that I have that weight and that constant support to be able to sit down into my beautiful accent decor container. And then we've got water tubes that are wrapped right around that. Again, this is a temporary. It's not going to last a long time, but it's great for party work and that type of thing. And if you're going to use water tubes, use glass ones. Make it look nice so that it's just not that green plastic thing. So we've got glass water tubes that are filled. And again, can you tell that I love these amber chocolate Lizianthus? It's just, I mean, the color palette just fit in with this whole color grouping that we were doing. But again, talk about texture. So we have the texture from the beautiful Pampas grass that's tucked in, a little bit of that artificial or that permanent botanical astilbe that's tucked in, the texture from these beautiful Lizianthus. It just makes you scream texture. And that's what it's really fun. It's fun, it's light, it's airy. The color palette is moody. So we're seeing just that color grouping with the jewel tone colors again coming into our market, that we're seeing some of this fun looks to that. Again, adding a little bit of the japonica vine to that softness that we see that brings us in. I think it just gives us that texture example all the way through to that. You could do it double-sided if you wanted to and clean it up, or have it so that you could see it from both sides if you're going to use it for event work. But then again, it's something you could rent out continually for that. So this is moss. So it's reindeer moss and just Spanish moss. That's that purple color. That's all from Floral Supply Syndicate. So a few little rocks tucked in. Inside the container? The wreath product itself? So you've got the Pampas Grass. So there's a couple different varieties. There's the dark and the light that's tucked in there. You can see how it's just kind of shedding there. And then there's that permanent botanical astilbe. That's this pinky ivory tone that's tucked. This is also Pampas grass. So it's all those grasses that are all just glued into that. It's a little painstaking. I had Gail working on that yesterday for me. So it does take a little bit of a while to do. But again, if you're going to use it as a rental, could you do that? Sure, you could rent that out very easily, or make it for fall wreaths. Oh my gosh, there's tons of ideas that you can do, but I love this wreath because it's so lightweight and it's flat that you can do all these fun little things to that. So, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for being here today. I know it's really interesting to get back into the groove of programming, and I've just done a few since August, and the desire is out there, and I thank you guys for at least coming out and being a part of that, because we have to get back into the groove, and we're creative people. We have to work with other designers to continue that creativity. It's really hard if you're not inspired by that on a daily basis to see. Again, I have to thank Kenichi and the Japanese Flowers and Plants Export Association for the amazing product that they have provided for us. It's outstanding. And if you... And if you're interested in some of this product, I know we can talk to, we have Yuki that's here. He's in the back. He's one of the representatives. And Ikuko can also talk to you about working with Japan and getting some beautiful products. Shiggy from, is it Kenichi that's online? Kenichi is also who's in charge of sending all this to us, is on video chat with us right now. So he can talk to you if you want to talk to him about any of the products that are here. And I also have to thank Shiggy from the second largest Asian flower market that they have, who was also instrumental in getting this product to us. So we want to thank them. I also have to thank a bunch of other people. So my Arizona State crew that was here yesterday that created these beautiful displays for us. So we had Brian and Terry and Blanca, and who else was there? Ikuko was here. Gail was here, all this group. You guys, they're the best. So make sure you support them in everything that you do. I also have to want to thank all the instructors this morning. You guys are awesome with some awesome techniques. So thank you guys for taking the time to do that. It takes a lot out of our everyday lives to come in and to teach. because I know some of them hasn't never done it before, but they did an excellent job, so thank you for doing that for us. What I want to challenge you is, I want you to take the techniques that you learned, and I hope you learned a few. Did you learn a few things? Okay, I want you to practice them. I want you to do them. You promise? Okay, I want you to take a walk out in nature, and I want you just to be immersed in it and think about what you're seeing and think about how she can inspire you to create something different. Could you do that? I hope so. Take the time to do that. We have to do that. And then I also want you to practice everything that you've learned and share it with everybody that you know. Promise? All right. Thank you guys for being here this afternoon. It's great.
Well, I would like to say thank you so much. We have a little present for you. And please, let's give it another thumbs up.